Welcome back. The second segment of the show, we're going to be talking about the global economy as it is set for a step back by the end of the year. And, recession is a high risk for the global economy due to COVID-19 and the Russian-Ukrainian war. We're joined over the phone by Dr. Yomn Hamaki, professor of economics at Ain Shams University. Thank you so much for joining us, Doctor.
Good evening.
Good evening to you too. Can you tell us a bit about the move that the Federal Reserve took by increasing the interest rate by 50 basis points? How will this affect the global economy?
Actually, nowadays we have a very gloomy picture for the global economy. We have several challenges confronting global economy nowadays. Not only the impact of COVID-19 that we still suffer from its impact, the Ukrainian-Russian war, adding more challenges to the world economy.
Yes.
Nowadays, we can face with high certainty stagflation in most Western economies, the United States,
Yes.
and the EU countries are going to suffer to a large extent. Despite that, EU countries have witnessed after COVID a tendency towards improving the potentialities of economic growth, but unfortunately, this war affected seriously, the potentiality for economic growth for the EU, even more
Yes.
severely than United States. Stagflation because of very high prices of energy, as well as destruction in value chain, as well as immigration coming from Ukraine into
Yes.
these European countries. So the EU countries can be regarded as the mostly affected part of the world of this war. Besides, we can add that
Yes.
the rate of growth in China that represent all the time, a potentiality for economic growth because of exceeding the rate of growth of 5% compared to major economies. Nowadays, China, most prospects of economic growth prove that we are about to have less than 5% due to return of COVID-19 and the lockdown that we have seen in China, nowadays affecting seriously the potentiality of economic growth. So the world economy actually is confronting severe challenges in this period.
Yes, I read somewhere that stagflation is much worse than having a stagnant economy or just inflation. Why is it so hard to get out of stagflation?
The stagflation is coming mostly, nowadays we know quite well, inflation. Stagflation is both inflation and regression. And slowdown of the economy. But we know quite well what are the reasons of inflation, and the potentiality for increasing prices is still working quite hard towards more and more increasing the price level. So still this is a big challenge. If we add to what's going on regarding the war nowadays, the most important thing is about uncertainty. Uncertainty is quite dangerous for any economic growth. And when you have this type of uncertainty, you don't know when this war is going to be ended, the longevity of such war and to what extent it's going to affect most economies of the world, the prices, to what extent they are going to increase, to what extent they are going to affect the cost of production for most produced product all over the world. So all this can be translated in uncertainty. Uncertainty is quite against, the potentiality and readiness of investors to invest. And from here it comes that we can, we can prospect stagnation,
Yes.
which is both inflation and a slowdown of the economy.
Yes, the UN chief actually came out with a statement saying that food scarcity is going to be an issue during 2022, and that this will affect mainly, developing and poorer countries. How can these countries somehow shield themselves from the possibility of, hunger?
Actually, developing countries, specifically African countries and Asian, those countries that are suffering from poverty are going to suffer more and more because of increase of the prices of food from one perspective. From another, the potentiality of production and the dependency on themselves. And this is a very important lesson for globalization, to how extent the world is going to move forward towards more globalization, compared to the ideas of self-sufficiency that is nowadays growing and growing, specifically after COVID-19 and the war of Ukraine and Russia.
Yes.
And this is quite important as lessons for developing countries. They have to rely on themselves. They have to try to use their resources efficiently. They have to try to use economic empowerment of poor people as a very important prospect for them to get out of poverty and improve the quality of life for the population, and trying to upgrade the skills and building human resources.
Yes.
Another dimension which is quite important is regional integration. Developing countries may have good opportunities to refer to regional integration.
Yes.
This may help a lot to cushion the negative repercussions of such challenges.
Yeah, when there's a real fear in Europe right now that the Russian-Ukraine war could possibly spill over into countries neighboring Ukraine. If this does happen, how will this affect the European economy and the global economy?
Actually, the European economies were expected to achieve a rate of growth, exceeding 4.5% nowadays, prospects is half such figure.
Yes.
So this is, putting a very gloomy picture regarding how European economies are going to manage. Cost of production is increasing seriously because not only of energy prices, but all other raw materials that may participate in several manufactured products in European economies. Specifically, Germany is going to be affected seriously because of its dependency on gas from Russia, as well as other sources of raw materials and intermediate goods. So I believe that European countries are going to be mostly severely affected by such wars.
Yes. How do you think that this recession is going to affect the Egyptian economy and specifically, prices here at home?
Actually, the Egyptian economy started to suffer from these challenges, starting from the war by, flying the hot money, which affected seriously our exchange rate. And when we have a devaluation of Egyptian pound, this actually affecting seriously cost of production, as well as since we are still relying on importation to large extent in our production and our consumption, this is representing a big challenge for the Egyptian economy. So what we have to do, actually, we had very good potentialities of using our internal resources We have a large market. We have human resources.
Yes.
We have our, our R&D and scientific centers and universities. We have to activate all these sources to rely on ourselves to some extent in order to develop our productive capacity, specifically in the industrial sector, to improve the competitiveness of our industrial sector. We have a lot of potentialities of doing that, and we have to work hard to sustain our economy.
Yeah, Dr. Yomn, what kind of measures or economic measures do you expect that the government here is going to take to, face the coming period when it comes to the global recession?
Actually, as I mentioned, if you use your resources efficiently, if you develop your human resources, and then regarding our manufacture sector is still not, playing a significant role to generate GDP and offer opportunities of jobs. Still, we have a large potentiality, unexploited resources, and we have all researchers to guide us to what intermediate industries you have to start supporting. And our president mentioned that for the first time, those who are going to produce intermediate goods are going to benefit from tax exemptions. This is for the first time in Egypt. I believe we have to build on that and to encourage our youth to produce in this value chain so that we can develop our capabilities and address such challenges properly.
Yes, China is obviously a mega power when it comes to the global economy. It is basically the world's factory. Right now, they're combating another phase of COVID-19 with severe lockdowns, specifically in the capital. How do you think this is going to further impact the global recession, and what does this mean for the Chinese economy?
I am expecting that China is going to rebound, very fast.
Yes.
Because the Chinese economy is very strong. They have reserves. They have all over the world a very diversified economy. They have human resource development quite good. So their potentialities are quite good. And I believe that for them, the Chinese economy, from my point of view, is going to rebound very, very soon and to participate in the development of the rate of growth worldwide.
Yes, but until they start to release these COVID lockdowns, until this phase of COVID-19 resurgence in China is over, how will this affect manufacturing globally?
Actually, what is confronting the manufacturing sector internationally post-COVID-19 is to how extent we can rely to value chain internationally compared to self-sufficiency. We witnessed that United States spent $52 billion to develop semiconductors, as well as Europe, which means that the interdependence on other countries and manufacturers to develop the complete value chain. This value chain is going to be disrupted and or reorganized again. And for here, all countries are invited to study quite well what's going on and to how extent they can benefit from such reorganization.
What are your expectations for energy prices in the near future? Do you still expect, oil prices to continue to increase?
Yes, since there is a disruption between supply and demand, since we have uncertainty regarding the major producers, on top of them Russia, we'll still have the big challenge of increasing prices of oil and gas. And From here it comes that even, renewable energy are going to be affected negatively, but with what we are witnessing nowadays. Because all countries of the world nowadays are looking for the cheapest way to produce, so that to reduce this inflation and to improve competitiveness. So the world is witnessing severe changes nowadays, and we have to, refer to data and to scientific approach of decision making so that we can address all these challenges.
Yes. Do you think that Egypt could become a contender in the global energy market now that Europe is trying to move away from Russian gas? Could we possibly be potential exporters of natural gas to the European continent?
Egypt is developing quite well the sources of oil and gas, but still our capacity to fill the gap is still weak compared to the demand. So we are going to work more than that. First of all, to secure our needs regarding sources of energy, as well as securing the demand, the international demand.
Okay, Dr. Yomn Hamaki, an economic professor at Ain Shams University, thank you so much for joining us over the phone and telling us about the possibilities and the outcomes of a global recession. This brings us to the end of this episode of Cairo Local Time, but stay tuned for more on Nile TV.